Episode 424, A Lesson for the Future. Both Lance and Mr. Cartwright were stunned at how little Alex seemed to care that the council member had come to see him when summoned. He hadn't said a single word to either of them, or even nodded in greeting. Billy stared at Alex's back, equally stunned at the way he had received Mr. Cartwright. But thinking quickly, he thought it might be a good time to take advantage of Alex's apparent blunder. He straightened his tie and approached Mr. Cartwright with a warm smile. "Hello, I'm the teaching director of Oak Ridge. You must be Lance's father? Thank you so much for coming," he said brightly, holding out his hand to shake. "Can I get you anything?" But Mr. Cartwright barely spared him a glance. He was still processing Alex's silence. He had a great deal of respect for Alex's fighting prowess, but he wasn't sure what to make of his attitude at that moment. Billy was left standing awkwardly with his hand hovering in the air. He coughed quickly, hoping no one had noticed. All of a sudden, Mr. Cartwright realized Alex was ignoring him as a show of contempt. This had to be retribution for not responding to his call quickly enough. He followed after Alex quickly, calling after him, "Please, Mr. Ambrose, slow down. I'm so sorry for the delay." But Alex didn't turn back to acknowledge him. Mr. Cartwright shot Lance a quick glare. Whatever this was all about, it had started with his son. The pair followed Alex like puppies back to his classroom, which was currently empty. Alex never turned back or spoke to them, and the pair settled into a gloomy silence. Finally, he led them into the classroom. Only then did he turn around to look at them. He frowned at Lance. "Who invited you in? Leave us. I need to speak with your father." Lance ran away, overwhelmed with relief. But before he got too far, he thought better of it and came back to listen by the door. Alex invited Mr. Cartwright to sit at one of the desks, and he sat at the next one over. Both men were silent for a time. Mr. Cartwright was accustomed to starting his meetings with silence. It was a good way to make your opponent uncomfortable. But he wasn't used to being on the receiving end of the treatment. Alex seemed to be in no hurry to break the silence. It was ominous, as if he had been threatening the other man with a knife. Finally, Mr. Cartwright couldn't stand it anymore. He said, "Mr. Ambrose?" Alex cut him off by handing him a piece of paper. It was a record of Lance's behavior at Oak Ridge. Every incident of poor behavior, violence, bad attitude, and bullying. The reason it was only one page was that it didn't go into detail. Each incident only had one line of description next to a date. The list was densely packed. Mr. Cartwright glared at the paper in consternation. It was very bad to have something like this in writing. If someone like a reporter got hold of the document, they could publish horrible things about his family and cause a great deal of trouble in his work. "You're worried about your reputation," Alex said, guessing correctly at his thoughts. "But that's just one piece of paper. Now imagine what could happen if somebody interviewed the teachers here. Do you understand the way your son has behaved during this time at this school?" Mr. Cartwright shook his head. "I've been careless. I'm clearly in a lot of trouble." "Mr. Cartwright, who is the future of Baltimore?" Alex asked him, as if speaking to a troubled student. Stunned, the man sat and thought for a moment. At first, he thought the answer was easy. The future of Baltimore was himself, as a council member and community leader. He was the one working to build the city toward a brighter future, taking responsibility for the hopes and dreams of everyone in his district. In comparison, his son's poor behavior seemed trivial. But before he could say so, Alex continued. The future of Baltimore is our young people. Whatever we build for them today, they'll be the ones to use it tomorrow. I understand you are very busy trying to build a bright future for this city, but you're neglecting something important. Alex sounded much older than his true age as he said this. The future of any city, not just Baltimore, is with the young people. But I'm not seeing much of a future here. I don't mean that in an alarmist way. I'm just making an observation from what I've seen at this school since I arrived. And it's not just the kids. You are responsible for this too. Lance was dumbfounded as he listened into the conversation. His father was being lectured like a student, and he wasn't arguing or fighting against it. Instead, after a moment, he heard his father softly agree. You didn't know about your son's behavior? Alex asked Mr. Cartwright gently. I'm sorry, but this is neglect. He needs more attention. You need to find another way forward with him. After a few more moments of silence, he finally added, That's all I have to say. Mr. Cartwright walked out of the room with a blank face. He looked drained. Lance stood waiting for him. Dad? Let's go, Mr. Cartwright said gruffly. Lance trotted after him out to the car that was waiting for him. Before he let the driver take him away, Mr. Cartwright turned to his son and said, Listen to me. I've turned a blind eye. I wasn't worried about you getting up to silly nonsense in school, but you need to respect Mr. Ambrose's authority. He is important. Try to make good with him. I know you're smart, even if you pretend not to be. Understand what I'm saying and watch yourself. With that, he left.